Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Dhena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. I offer my repeated obeisances to the lotus feet of my divine spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and all the previous acharyas. And I offer my obeisances to all of you who have joined us online today. You're all Vaishnavas and therefore the most worshipable in the three worlds. Hare Krishna. Gaur Premanande Haribo. Tonight we're reading from the Srimad, from the Sri Caitanya Charitamrta, and we're taking up at the Madhya Lila, chapter 11. This is called the Beda Kirtan Pastimes, starting off at text number 1. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu merged the entire world in the ocean of ecstatic love by performing his beautiful dances within the temple of Jagannath. He danced exquisitely and jumped high. All glories to Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and all glories to Lord Nityananda Prabhu. All glories to Sri Advaita Prabhu and all glories to all the devotees of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. The next day, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya requested Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu to give him permission to submit a statement without fear. The Lord gave the Bhattacharya assurance that he could speak without fear, but added that if his statement were suitable, he would accept it, and if it were not, he would reject it. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, "There is a king named Prataparudra Roy. He is very anxious to meet you, and he wants your permission." As soon as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard this proposal, he immediately covered his ears with his hands and said, "My dear Sarvabhauma, why are you requesting such an undesirable thing from me? Since I am in the renounced order, it is as dangerous for me to meet a king as to meet a woman. To meet either would be just like drinking poison." Niskinchanasya bhagavad bhajano mukhasya param param jagamashur bhavasagarasya sandarshanam vishainam atayoshitam cha ha hanta hanta vishabhakshanato pisadhu. Greatly lamenting, the Lord then informed Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, "Alas, for a person who is seriously desiring to cross the material ocean and engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord without material motives, seeing a materialist engaged in sense gratification or seeing a woman who is similarly interested is more abominable than drinking poison willingly." Purport: This is a quotation from Sri Chaitanya Chandrodaya Nataka. Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu enunciates the principles for a sannyasi renouncing the material world for spiritual advancement. Spiritual advancement is not meant for magic shows and jugglery, but for crossing the material world and being transferred to the spiritual world. Param param jugamasho means desiring to go to the other side of the material world. There is a river named Vaitarani, and on one side of this river is the material world, and on the other side is the spiritual world. Since the Vaitarani river is compared to a great ocean, it is named Bhavasagra, the ocean of repeated birth and death. Spiritual life aims at stopping this repetition of birth and death and entering into the spiritual world where one can live eternally cognizant and blissful. Unfortunately, the general populace does not know anything about spiritual life or the spiritual world. The spiritual world is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita 8:20. Parastasmatu bhavo nyo vyakto vyaktat sanatanaha yak saksarveshu bhuteshu nashyatsu navinashiti. Yet there is another unmanifested nature which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and is never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is. Thus, there is a spiritual nature beyond this material world and that spiritual nature exists eternally. Spiritual advancement means stopping material activities and entering into spiritual activities. This is the process of bhakti yoga. In the material world, the via media for sense gratification is mainly a woman. One who is seriously interested in spiritual life should strictly avoid women. A sannyasi should never see a man or a woman for material benefit. In addition, talks with materialistic men and women are also dangerous, and they are compared to drinking poison. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was very strict on this point. He therefore refused to see King Prataparudra, who was naturally always engaged in political and economic affairs. The Lord even refused to see the king, despite the request of a personality like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was the Lord's intimate friend and devotee. Sarvabhauma kahe, Satya tomar bachan, Jagannath Shebak Raja Kintu Bhaktotama. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya replied, "My dear Lord, what you have said is correct. But this king is not an ordinary king. He is a great devotee and servant of Lord Jagannath." Prabhu kahe, Tatapi Raja Kal Sarpa Akara, Kashta Nari Sparshi Jaiche Upaje Vikara. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, although it is correct that the king is a great devotee, he is still to be considered a venomous snake. Similarly, even though a woman be made of wood, one becomes agitated simply by touching her form. Purport: Sri Chanakya Pandit has stated in his moral instructions, Tyaja Durjana Sangsargam Bhaja Sadhu Samagamam. This means that one has to abandon the association of materialistic people and associate with spiritually advanced people. However qualified a materialist may be, he is no better than a venomous serpent. Everyone knows that a snake is dangerous and poisonous, and when its hood is decorated with jewels, it is no less poisonous or dangerous. However qualified a materialist may be, he is no better than a snake decorated with jewels. One should therefore be careful in dealing with such materialists, just as one would be careful in dealing with a bejeweled serpent. Even though a woman be made of wood or stone, she becomes attractive when decorated. One becomes sexually agitated even by touching the form. Therefore, one should not trust his mind, which is so fickle that it can give way to enemies at any moment. The mind is always accompanied by 6 enemies, namely Kama, Krodha, Mada, Moha, Matsarya, and Paya. That is lust, anger, intoxication, illusion, envy, and fear. Although the mind may be merged in spiritual consciousness, one should always be very careful in dealing with it, just as one is careful in dealing with a snake. One should never think that his mind is trained and that he can do whatever he likes. One interested in spiritual life should always engage his mind in the service of the Lord, so that the enemies of the mind, who always accompany the mind, will be subdued. If the mind is not engaged in Krishna consciousness at every moment, there is a chance that it will give way to its enemies. In this way, we become victims of the mind. Chanting the Hare Krishna mantra engages the mind at the lotus feet of Krishna constantly. Thus, the mind's enemies do not have a chance to strike. Following Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's example in these verses, we should be very careful in dealing with the mind, which should not be indulged in any circumstance. Once we indulge the mind, it can create havoc in this life, even though we may be spiritually advanced. The mind is specifically agitated through the association of materialistic men and women. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, through his personal behavior, warns everyone to avoid meeting a materialistic person or a woman. Text 11. Just as one is immediately frightened upon seeing a live serpent, or even the form of a serpent, one endeavoring for self-realization should simply fear Similarly, fear a materialistic person and a woman. Indeed, he should not even glance at their bodily features. Purport, this is a quotation from Sri Caitanya Chandrodaya Nataka. Bhattacharya, if you continue to speak like this, you will never see me here again. Therefore, you should never let such a request come from your mouth. Being afraid, Sarvabhauma returned home and began to meditate on the matter. At this time, Maharaj Prataparuja arrived at Jagannath Puri, Purushottam, and, accompanied by his secretaries, ministers, and military officers, went to visit the temple of Lord Jagannath. Purport, it appears that Maharaj Prataparuja used to live in Cuttack, his capital. Later, he shifted his capital to Khurda, a few miles from Jagannath Puri. Presently, there is a railway station there called Khurda Road. When King Prataparuja returned to Jagannath Puri, Ramananda Roy came with him. Ramananda Roy immediately went to meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with great pleasure. Purport, all Indian kings are given titles. Sometimes they are known as Chhatrapati, sometimes as Narapati, sometimes Ashvapati, and so on. The king of Orissa is addressed as Gajapati. Upon meeting Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Ramananda Roy offered his obeisances. The Lord embraced him, and both of them began to cry in the great ecstasy of love. Seeing Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's intimate dealings with Sri Ramananda Roy, all the devotees there were astonished. Ramananda Roy said, I duly informed King Prataparuja of your order for me to retire from service. By your grace, the king was pleased to relieve me of these material activities. Purport, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu requested Ramananda Roy to retire from his governorship. And according to the Lord's desire, Ramananda Roy petitioned the king. The king was very pleased to give him relief, and thus Ramananda Roy retired from service and received a pension from the government. I said, Your Majesty, I am now not willing to engage in political activities. I desire only to stay at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Kindly give me permission. When I submitted this proposal, the king immediately became very pleased upon hearing your name. Indeed, he instantly rose from his throne and embraced me. My dear Lord, as soon as the king heard your holy name, he was immediately overwhelmed by great ecstatic love. Catching my hand, he displayed all the symptoms of love. As soon as he heard my petition, he immediately granted me a pension without reductions. Thus the king granted me a full salary as a pension and requested me to engage without anxiety in the service of your lotus feet. Then Maharaj Prataparuja very humbly said, I am most fallen and abominable, and I am unfit to receive an interview with the Lord. One's life is successful if one engages in his service. The king then said, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda. He is very merciful, and I hope that in a future birth he will allow me an interview. My Lord, I don't think that there is even a fraction of Maharaj Prataparudra's loving ecstasy in me. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then said, My dear Ramananda Roy, you are the foremost of all the devotees of Krishna. Therefore, whoever loves you is certainly a very fortunate person. Because the king has shown so much love for you, Lord Krishna will certainly accept him. Purport. King Prataparuja requested an interview with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through the Bhattacharya, who duly submitted the request. The Lord, however, immediately refused this interview. Now, when Ramananda Roy informed the Lord how eager the king was to see him, the Lord was immediately pleased. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu requested Ramananda Roy to retire from his government post and come to Sri Purushottam Kshetra, Jagannath Puri, to live with him. When this proposal was submitted to King Prataparudra, he immediately accepted it and also encouraged Ramananda Roy by allowing him a full pension. This was very much appreciated by the Lord, and this confirms the fact that the Lord is more pleased when one serves the servant of the Lord. In ordinary parlance, it is said, if you love me, love my dog. To approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one has to go through his confidential servant. This is the method. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu clearly says, because the king loves you, Ramananda Roy, he is very fortunate. Krishna will certainly accept him due to his love for you. Ye me bhakta jana parta, na me bhaktash chate jana, mad bhaktanam cha ye bhaktas, te me bhakta tamamata. Lord Krishna told Arjuna, those who are my direct devotees are actually not my devotees, but those who are the devotees of my servant are factually my devotees. Purport, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu quotes this verse from the Adi Purana. The verse is also included in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita. My devotees take great care and respect in rendering me service. They offer obeisances to me with all their bodily limbs. They worship other devotees and find all living entities related to me. For me, they engage the entire energy of their bodies. They engage the power of speech in the glorification of my qualities and form. They also dedicate their minds unto me and try to give up all kinds of material desires. Thus, my devotees are characterized. Purport, these two verses are quoted from Srimad Bhagavatam 11:19, 21 through 22. They were spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, who is answering Uddhava's inquiry about devotional service. Isn't that a sublime verse? It's just absolutely beautiful. If you won't mind, I'm going to read the translation again. My devotees take great care and respect in rendering me service. They offer obeisances to me with all their bodily limbs. They worship other devotees and find all living entities related to me. For me, they engage the entire energy of their bodies. They engage the power of speech in the glorification of my qualities and form. They also dedicate their minds unto me and try to give up all kinds of material desires. Thus, my devotees are characterized. Text 31. Aradhanam sarvesham vishnor aradhanam param tasmat parataram devi tadyanam samarchanam. Lord Shiva told the goddess Durga, my dear Devi, although the Vedas recommend worship of demigods, the worship of Lord Vishnu is topmost. However, above the worship of Lord Vishnu is the rendering of service to Vaishnavas, who are related to Lord Vishnu. Purport, the Vedas are divided into three divisions, Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, and Upasana Kanda. These are activities dealing with fruit of work, empiric philosophical speculation, and worship. There are recommendations in the Vedas for the worship of various demigods as well as Lord Vishnu. In this quotation from the Padma Purana, Lord Shiva answers a question posed to him by goddess Durga. This verse is also included in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita 2.4 by Srila Rupa Goswami. The words Vishnur Aradhanam refer to the worship of Lord Vishnu or Krishna. Thus, the supreme form of worship is the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. It is further concluded that the worshiper of Lord Vishnu renders better service by worshiping the devotee of Lord Krishna. There are different types of devotees. those in Shantaras, Dasyaras, Sakyaras, Vatsalyaras, and Madhuryaras. Although all the rasas are on the transcendental platform, Madhurya Ras is the supreme transcendental mellow. Consequently, it is concluded that the worship of devotees engaged in the Lord's service in Madhurya Ras is the supreme spiritual activity. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers mainly worship Lord Krishna in Madhurya Ras. Other Vaishnavacharyas recommend worship up to the Vatsalya Ras. Therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami in his Vidagdha Madhava describes Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's cult as supreme. Anarpita charim chirat karana yavatirna kalau samarpayitumunatojwala rasam sabhakti shriyam. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in this age of Kali to exhibit the super excellence of Madhurya Ras, a gift never previously bestowed by any acharya or incarnation. Consequently, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is accepted as the most magnanimous incarnation. It is he only who distributed love of Krishna while exhibiting the super excellence of loving Krishna in the conjugal ras. Text number 32. Durapa hyalpatapasa seva vaikunta vartmasu yatro pagiyate nityam deva devo janardana. Those whose austerity is meager can hardly obtain the service of the pure devotees progressing on the path back to the kingdom of Godhead, the Vaikunthas. Pure devotees engage 100% in glorifying the Supreme Lord, who is the Lord of the demigods and the controller of all living entities. Purport. This verse is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 3:720. It was spoken by Vidura in his conversation with Maitreya Rishi, a great devotee of the Lord. (33) Paramananda Puri Brahmananda Bharati Gosai, Sarup Damodar Gosai, Lord Nityananda, Jagadananda Mukunda, and others were present before the Lord at that time. Sri Ramananda Roy therefore offered his obeisances to all the Lord's devotees, in particular to the four spiritual masters. Thus, Ramananda Roy suitably met all the devotees. Purport, the four spiritual masters referred to in this verse are Paramananda Puri, Brahmananda Bharati, Swarup Damodar, and Lord Nityananda. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu next asked Ramananda Roy, have you already visited the temple of the lotus-eyed Lord Jagannath? Ramananda Roy replied, I shall now go visit the temple. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, what have you done, my dear Roy? Why did you not first see Lord Jagannath and then come here? Why have you come here first? Ramananda Roy said, the legs are like the chariot and the heart is like the charioteer. Whatever the heart takes, wherever the heart takes the living entity is obliged to go. Purport, in the Bhagavad Gita 1861, Lord Krishna explains, Ishvara sarvabhutanam hrideshwarjuna tishtati pramayan sarvabhutani yantra rudhani mayaya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities, who are seated as on a machine made of material energy. Thus, the living entity wanders within this universe, riding upon a chariot, the body, bestowed by material nature. A similar explanation is given in the Katha Upanishad. Atmanam ratinam vidhi shariram ratam evatu buddhim tu saratim vidhi mana pragraham evacha indriyani hayan ahur vishayams te shugocharan atmendriya mano yuktam bhoktet yahur manishina. Here it is said that the living entity is the passenger riding in the chariot of the body. which is offered by material nature. The intelligence is the charioteer, the mind constitutes the reins controlling the horses, and the senses are the horses. Thus, the living entity is the false enjoyer of the material world. One who is advanced in Krishna consciousness can control the mind and intelligence, and in this way rein in the horses, the senses, even though they are very powerful. One who is advanced in Krishna consciousness can control the mind and intelligence, and in this way rein in the horses, the senses, even though they are very powerful. One who can control the senses by his mind and intelligence can very easily approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or Vishnu, who is the ultimate goal of life. Tat Vishnu Paramam Padam Sada Pashyanti Surayaha. Those who are actually advanced approach Lord Vishnu, their ultimate goal. Such people are never captivated by Lord Vishnu's external energy, the material world. So for a moment, I'm going to take some reflection.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, thank you so much for reading. I really liked that the character of Maharaj Pratap Rudra, that although he was trying so hard to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his audience was being denied, but when his own subordinate comes and asks for permission to take retirement so that he can go and serve Lord Chaitanya Prabhu, he actually, instead of feeling envious, he feels happy and gives him permission and full pension without any deductions and things like that.
Yes.
It's amazing character.
Yes, good point. He also expressed that if he wasn't able to see him in this lifetime, then he would wait many other lifetimes in order to see him, which is reminiscent of Mukunda. When Mukunda had been denied audience with the Lord because the Lord had noticed that he went here, there, and everywhere and listened to various kinds of people around the town who were speaking various kinds of katha, some of it not so favorable to devotional service. He told everyone, don't bring Mukunda here, I don't want to see him anymore. Because he was giving audience to everybody else. So when the devotees begged the Lord, he said no. So Mukunda then said, please ask Lord Chaitanya when I'll be able to see him. And Mahaprabhu, in an angry mood, said after 10,000 births he can come. And Mukunda then began dancing, and the devotees wanted to know why he was so happy. And it was because I will see him, even if it's 10,000 births. And then Mahaprabhu immediately called him because that was the mood. It happened one other time when a young Brahmana was invited into Srivas Sangam. Srivas Thakur invited him to come in because he was very austere, young brahmachari. He only drank milk. Brahmachari was expelled because Mahaprabhu said, what qualification does he have? Being in the mode of goodness is not the qualification. So when he was thinking to himself that at least I saw Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was in so much ecstasy, Mahaprabhu understood his heart and then called him back. Thank you, Shraddha. What other reflections do you have?
Oh, I really like, connecting back to what was happening, you were talking about in the afternoon and now about the analogy from Bhagavad Gita about the mind and the horses, being the senses, and how in this scenario when every day there's something new happening and kind of going towards the more, so-called people feeling that's going, worse situation, because we are Krishna conscious, it just cannot, I was just thinking, how many more things can I do for Krishna now that I can totally dedicate? I don't have to worry about work. I don't have to do anything. So I was just thinking in that sense that how fortunate a person is who understands the real scenario of what's a mind, what are the senses, what's the purpose of life. So just reflecting on that.
Very nice reflection, especially when there's change going on in the world and we are given a different perspective. Those who have been training themselves to worship Krishna then see opportunity rather than becoming upset. They see, here's ways that I can actually become more attached to Krishna and be more grateful for the things that he's given me so far. Thank you very much, Sukeshri. Okay, who else?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. My reflection is there is that verse from Srimad Bhagavatam that talked about when one austerity is very meager, they can't see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And I remember I just recently listened to a class by Srila Prabhupada, and he was saying that the only austerity for the age of Kali is the Trinadapi Sunichina verse. So that popped in my head when I heard that verse from Srimad Bhagavatam in this series of verses.
Very nice. In other words, if one simply applies that principle, Trinadapi Sunichena, to be very humble, then everything else is possible. Prabhupada speaks about this often in his purports, that submission is the gateway to achieving perfection in bhakti. Thank you, Devavrata. What else?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
So I really like the point we were reading in beginning. It's from 8th verse, that how we should be serious about our spiritual life, and we have to understand what is it really for. Because like sometimes, at least in my case, I'm thinking, okay, I want to become the best Caitanya, I want to become the best Sanskrit scholar or something like that. But then the goal, I lose the goal. Why? What is it all for? And it's so nice to read in this verse that it's actually, just to really cross the ocean of material existence. Just kind of keep the goal. I just like this verse.
Yeah, it's a very powerful purport, isn't it? That number 8. Bhavasagarasya param jagamashur bhavasagarasya. And the awareness that Prabhupada gives us from that verse also, prastasmat tu bhavonyo vyakto vyaktat sanatana yaksat sarveshu bhuteshu nashyatsu vinashiti. Besides this temporary material world, there's an eternal world beyond here, and one has to cross over that. So Prabhupada warned us several times in that purport to be very careful. Don't take it for granted and think I'm very advanced, I can cut corners and so forth. It's not worth it. One should be vigilant and keep the goal in mind. Yes, nice. One more, and then we'll go back to the reading.
I was thinking about the importance of association, especially when it came to when Prabhupada was talking about how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was showing how he was very careful about who he associated with.
Yes.
When it came to his refusal to meet King Prataparudra.
Yes.
How it was like drinking poison.
Yes, exactly. And I gave this example the other night that this little virus thing is floating around everywhere. And we become more aware of how we're moving, how we're sanitizing ourselves, and making sure we have prophylactics everywhere to not get infected. How much more so we should be on the subtle level with our association. We can think of it like that I've been contaminated. And you'll notice that at Mahaprabhu in his pastimes, several times, when he runs into Mayavadis or people who are objectionable, he runs and jumps into the Ganges with all his clothes on to get purified. So there's this very strong awareness that I can become contaminated by certain kinds of association. Of course, when devotees go out to preach and do book distribution as an example, in the old days there was this rumor going around, some speculation that we're shaking hands with people, we're taking their karma. And this was brought up to Prabhupada, and he said it was nonsense. He said, we don't go to take association, we go to give our association when we're preaching. So it's a different mood. And so if one has this enjoying spirit, especially around somebody who is dedicated to the idea that the material world is a good place and we should camp out here, then that kind of mood infects us. So we should be very careful to be fortified when we're moving around the world, just as much as when we're moving around and we're aware of little viruses. Okay, we're taking up where we left off on text 38. We're right now Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta Madhya Lila, chapter 11, the Bida Kirtan pastimes. Ami ki kariba man ihan loy aila, Jagannath darshani bicharana koila. Sri Ramananda Roy continued, what shall I do? My mind has brought me here. I could not consider going first to Lord Jagannath's temple. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised, immediately go to Lord Jagannath's temple to see the Lord, then go home and meet your family members. Having received Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's permission, Ramananda Roy hastily went to the temple of Lord Jagannath. Who can understand the devotional service of Ramananda Roy? When King Prataparuja returned to Jagannath Puri, he called for Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. When the Bhattacharya went to see the king offered him respects and made the following inquiries. The king asked, have you submitted my petition to the Lord? Sarvabhauma replied, yes, with much endeavor, I have tried my best. Yet despite my great endeavor, the Lord would not agree to see a king. Indeed, he said that if he were asked again, he would quit Jagannath Puri and go elsewhere. Hearing this, the king became very unhappy and greatly lamenting began to speak as follows. The king said, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has descended just to deliver all kinds of sinful, low-born persons. Consequently, he has delivered sinners like Jagai and Madhya. Alas, has Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu incarnated to deliver all kinds of sinners with the exception of a king named Maharaj Prataparudra? Why don't you use my phone instead? Maybe there's a difference.
Okay.
Purport, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission is thus described by Narottam Das Thakur, Patita Pavane Hetu Tava Avatar, Mo Sama Patita Prabhu Na Paibe Ar. If Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu descended to reclaim sinners, then one who is the most sinful and lowborn is the first candidate for the Lord's consideration. Maharaj Prataparuja considered himself a most fallen soul because he had to deal with material things constantly and enjoy material profits. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's business was the deliverance of the most fallen. How then could he reject the king? The more fallen a person is, the more he has the right to be delivered by the Lord, provided, of course, he surrenders unto the Lord. Maharaj Prataparuja was a fully surrendered soul. Therefore, the Lord could not refuse him on the grounds that he was a worldly pounds, shillings man. 47. Alas, has Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made his advent, deciding that he will deliver all others with the exception of me? He bestows his merciful glance upon many lower class men who are usually not even to be seen. Purport, this verse is found in Sri Chaitanya Chandrodaya Nataka. Maharaj Prataparudra continued, if Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is determined not to see me, then I am determined to give up my life if I do not see him. Purport, a devotee with Maharaj Prataparudra's determination will certainly be victorious in advancing in Krishna consciousness. Sri Krishna confirms this in Bhagavad Gita. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dritavrta namasyantash chamam bhaktya nityayukta upasate. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. These are the symptoms of a Mahatma engaged in the Lord's service in full Krishna consciousness. Thus, Maharaj Prataparudra's determination is very much exalted and is called Dritavrata. Because of this determination, he was finally able to receive Lord Chaitanya's direct mercy. This is an extremely important point. This is text number 48, Madhya Lila 11:48. A devotee with Maharaj Prataparudra's determination will certainly be victorious in advancing in Krishna consciousness. So really, this is the price to pay. Krishna ras bhavito mati, kriyatam yadi kritopi labhyate, tatalauyam apimulyam ekalam, janmakoti sukritir nalabhyate. Rupa Goswami, the price to pay for devotional service is one's intense greed to have it. And if such devotional service is available somewhere, one should immediately go there to purchase it. Don't wait. 49. If I do not receive Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy, my body and my kingdom are certainly useless. Purport, this is an excellent example of Dhritavrata, determination. If one does not receive the Supreme Personality of Godhead's mercy, one's life is defeated. In Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.5, it is said, Parabhavas tavad abodha jato yanvana jignasata atma tattvam. Unless one inquires into spiritual life, everything is useless. Without spiritual inquiry, our labor and the object of our labor are simply a waste of time. Shrama evahi kevalam. 50. Hearing King Prataparuja's determination, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya became thoughtful. Indeed, he was very much astonished to see the king's determination. Purport, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was astonished because such determination is not possible for a worldly man attached to material enjoyment. The king certainly had an ample opportunity for material enjoyment, but he was thinking that his kingdom and everything else was useless if he could not see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is certainly sufficient cause for astonishment. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that bhakti, devotional service, must be unconditional. No material impediments can actually check the advancement of devotional service, be it executed by a common man or a king. In any case, devotional service rendered to the Lord is always complete, despite the devotee's material position. Devotional service is so exalted that it can be executed by anyone in any position. One must simply be Dhritavrata, firmly determined. 51. Finally, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, My dear king, do not worry. Because of your firm determination, I am sure that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy will definitely be bestowed upon you. Purport, due to King Prataparuja's firm determination, the Bhattacharya predicted that the king would receive Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy without fail. As confirmed elsewhere in Caitanya Caritamrta, Madhya 19.151, Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhukti Lata Bij. By the mercy of the spiritual master in Krishna, one gets the seed of devotional service. The Bhattacharya was the spiritual master of King Prataparuja, and he gave his blessings to the effect that the Lord would be merciful upon the king. The mercy of the spiritual master in Krishna combine to grant success to a devotee engaged in Krishna consciousness. This is confirmed by the Vedas. Yastadevi parabhaktir yata devi tatakarao tasyaite katita hyarta prakashante mahatmanaha. Only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. That's from the Shvetashvatara Upanishad 6.23. Maharaj Prataparuja had firm faith in the Bhattacharya who declared Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Having firm faith in the Bhattacharya as his spiritual master, King Prataparuja immediately accepted Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the Supreme Lord. Thus, he began worshiping Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his mind. This is the process of devotional service. According to Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita 9.34, Manmana bhavamad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mami vaishyasi yuktvaivam atmanam parayanaha. Engage your mind always in thinking of me, become my devotee, offer obeisances to me, and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. This process is very simple. One need only be firmly convinced by the spiritual master that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one decides this, he can make further progress by thinking of Krishna, chanting of Krishna, and glorifying him. There is then no doubt that such a fully surrendered devotee will receive the blessings of Lord Krishna. Srila Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya explains this further. As soon as the Bhattacharya saw the king's firm determination, he declared, "The Supreme Lord is approached only by pure love. Your love for Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu is very, very deep. Therefore, without a doubt, he will be merciful upon you." Purport: such determination is the first qualification. As confirmed by Rupa Goswami, Upadeshamrita 3, Utsahan Nishchayat Daryat, one must first have firm determination, firm faith. When one engages in devotional service, he must maintain this firm determination. Then Krishna will be pleased with his service. The spiritual master can show the path of devotional service. If the disciple follows the principles rigidly and undeviatingly, he will certainly receive the mercy of Krishna. This is confirmed by the Shastras. How does that make you all feel? Happy, I would suppose.
Yes.
Yes. Well,
Yes.
Karvinda Prabhu seems happy.
Yes.
Okay. Text 53. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya then suggested there is one means by which you can directly see him. On the day of the car festival, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu will dance before the deity in great ecstatic love. On that Rath Yatra festival day, after dancing before the Lord, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu will enter the Gudicha garden. At that time, you should go there alone, along with your royal dress. When Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu enters the Gudicha garden, you should also go there and read the 5 chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam about Lord Krishna's dancing with the gopis. In this way, you can catch hold of the Lord's lotus feet. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will be in a mood of ecstatic love without external consciousness. At that time, as you recite those chapters from Srimad Bhagavatam, he will embrace you, knowing you to be a pure Vaishnava. Purport: a Vaishnava is always ready to help another Vaishnava progress toward realization of the absolute truth. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya could understand the king's position as a pure Vaishnava. The king was always thinking of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and the Bhattacharya wanted to help him approach the Lord. A Vaishnava is always compassionate, especially when he sees a prospective devotee very determined, Dhritavrata. Consequently, the Bhattacharya was ready to help the king. The Lord has already changed his mind due to Ramananda Roy's description of your pure love for him. Purport: at first, the Lord did not want to see the king, but due to the Bhattacharya's and Ramananda Roy's earnest endeavors, the Lord's mind was changed. The Lord already declared that Krishna would be merciful upon the king due to the king's service to the devotees. This is the process by which one can advance in Krishna consciousness. First, there must be the devotee's mercy. Then Krishna's mercy will descend. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado, yasya prasadan nagati kutopi. Our first duty, therefore, is to satisfy the spiritual master who can arrange for the Lord's mercy. A common man must first begin to serve the spiritual master or the devotee. Then, through the mercy of the devotee, the Lord will be satisfied. Unless one receives the dust of a devotee's lotus feet on one's head, there is no possibility of advancement. This is also confirmed by the statement of Prahlad Maharaj's in Srimad Bhagavatam 7.532. Naisha matista varurukramangrin sprishartyanartha pagamo yadartaha mahiya sampadarajo bhishekam niskinchananam navranita yavat. Unless one approaches a pure devotee, He cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Maharaj Prataparudra worshipped both Ramananda Roy and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Thus, he touched the lotus feet of pure devotees and was able thereby to approach Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Maharaj Prataparudra took the Bhattacharya's advice and firmly decided to follow his instructions. Thus, he felt transcendental happiness. When the king asked the Bhattacharya when the bathing ceremony, Snan Yatra, of Lord Jagannath would take place, the Bhattacharya replied that there were only 3 days left before the ceremony. Let's see if we have any last comments before we end the reading. I have another phone meeting to attend to at 8:10, so I have to not go on and on tonight, which I would like to do, but I can't. So any questions or comments? Questions or reflections?
Hare Krishna,
Q and R. Yes.
There's so many points, but due to short of time, I will just say one of the thing in which Prabhupada specifically mentioned that in the 51, the process is very simple. I'm just quoting the purport. One need only be firmly convinced by the spiritual master that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one decides this, he can make further progress by thinking of Krishna, chanting of Krishna, and glorifying him. There is no doubt that such fully surrendered devotee will receive the blessing of Lord Krishna. So I was remembering once, I think, Srila Prabhupada's, there was some past time when I think he told some of his disciples that what is the biggest problem, and I'm not able to recollect that past time, but the essence was that you're not fully convinced. Are you fully convinced that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? So I was just recollecting that past time.
Yes, he did say that. And on another occasion, Prabhupada mentioned that when he came to the West, the Westerners had no previous experience of the Vaishnava philosophy or any other philosophy for that matter. So they were very open. So when Prabhupada said Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they just accepted it. And that's why they were successful in the early days, especially, or going forward at any time. But he did mention that he found them to be blank slates in that way. Oftentimes in India, he would mention it, and there's a big argument about whether Shiva's God or somebody else, or God's impersonal, and so forth. But many of the followers in the West said, he said, here's God, Lord Chaitanya. He's like, okay, we'll accept.
Thank you.
Yes, other comments or reflections or questions? Go right ahead. You can also do it on Facebook if you'd like to, by just writing it in. Well, there's quite a few devotees here on Zoom tonight. Facebook, so we dropped you a couple times. I don't know what's going on, but we'll, in the future, keep bringing you back if that happens again.
Quite a few.
Any last reflections? Yes. Mm-hmm.
No, I was saying quite a few migrated from Facebook to Zoom because of our pages.
I didn't quite hear you. Yes?
Danut Pranam Guru Maharaj, Sutra Malika Dasa.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I really like the point when you said the Parabhavasta Vada Bodha Jato Yavan Jigyasata Atmatarpam Yavat Kriyasta Vaditam Manovai Karmatmakam Yena Sharira Bandha. That verse, that kind of rings well, saying that, everything is a waste if you don't pursue your spiritual life.
Yes, very strong language that is used in that section by Rishabhadeva.
Yes, Guru.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any last points? Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining in. Sorry it was a short tour tonight, but we got a little nectar. Here's the Sri Caitanya Caritamrta, and I'll just show you a couple pictures. So here, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced Sri Ramananda Roy very firmly and both almost lost consciousness out of ecstatic love. First on the Facebook. This is a famous meeting of Ramananda Roy and Lord Caitanya. Sarvabhaumacharya had mentioned to Mahaprabhu that he should meet Ramananda Roy when he went on his tour of South India, because he said previously I'd met him, and because I wasn't a Vaishnava at that time, I didn't understand his value, but now I do. So he said, please try to meet him. Of course, the Lord arranges such things through his internal energy. And he met with Ramananda Roy, and there was the pastime I just showed you. And then, well, here you are. Later, Ramananda Roy. You can see Ramananda Roy with Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. We'll read that sometime soon, the Ramananda Samvad, the discussion between Ramananda Roy and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that culminates in Mahaprabhu showing him his form as Radha and Krishna. And so we'll read all these things because the world has been canceled, and now we just get to hear Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta. Yay! Haribol. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining in. We'll keep the vibration going, Krishna willing, as long as we can, as long as we have breath. And keep safe, keep washing your hands, and social distance. Panchakalpadruvascha kripasindhuveka patitanam pavnebhyo. Everyone, please say Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Himanande Adipo.
Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, hey, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman.